almost 4 million babies born each year in the United States. Approximately 122,000 of them are born with some kind of birth defect. About 1,500 of those babies are born with gastroschisis. I would like to discuss some information about gastroschisis, a rare but serious birth defect. I would like to share what gastroschisis is and what causes it, how it is diagnosed, what treatments are available, and what complications may occur from gastroschisis. First, what is gastroschisis? According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's article, Gastroschisis, in March 2009, gastroschisis is a birth defect in which a portion of an infant's intestines protrude out of the body through a small hole in the body wall beside the umbilical cord. According to WebMD's article, Gastroschisis, in October of 2007, there is nothing covering the organs, and the intestines may be swollen and look shortened due to exposure to irritating amniotic fluid. The CDC also states that each year about 1,500 babies in the United States are born with gastroschisis. In other words, 1 out of every 2,500 babies are born with gastroschisis. The exact cause of gastroschisis is still unknown. According to research performed by the CDC for the article Gastroschisis, teenage mothers are more likely to have a baby with gastroschisis than older moms, and white teenagers are at a higher risk than Black or African American teenagers. Also, mothers eating a high-fat and high cholesterol diet are more at risk for having a baby with gastroschisis. However, there is a lot more research needed on this topic. So, secondly, how is gastroschisis diagnosed? According to Medline Plus, a service of the U.S. National Library of Medicine and the National Institutes of Health, in the article Gastroschisis from November of 2009, physical examination of the infant is enough for the healthcare provider to diagnose gastroschisis. The baby will have problems with movement and absorption in the gut because the unprotected intestine is exposed to irritating amniotic fluids. The mother may also show signs of polyhydramnios, which is excess amniotic fluid. Polyhydramnios may show no symptoms in some women, but in others it may cause maternal discomfort and breathing problems, premature rupture of the membranes or your water breaking early, poor fetal growth, and excessive maternal bleeding after birth. A prenatal ultrasound is most often what diagnoses gastroschisis. Fortunately, I have a connection to this department. My mother, Dina Buchanan, is the lead sonographer at Clark Fork Valley Hospital, so I got to have a behind-the-scenes interview. Unfortunately, I don't have several hours to review our entire conversation about gastroschisis, so I will briefly explain her statements. Gastroschisis is one of the many reasons that prenatal care is so important. It is very easily recognized in an ultrasound that is routinely given in pregnancy. Gastroschisis is generally very visible on an ultrasound, as the umbilical region is one of the areas that they focus on the most. It is seen on the screen when searching the umbilical region and can look like a large knot or ball has formed in the umbilical cord. Dina also states that she has rarely seen gastroschisis in her work, but has studied it during college and in her continuing education classes. According to Medline Plus, if gastroschisis is found before birth, the mother will need special monitoring to make sure her unborn baby remains healthy. Plans should be made for careful delivery and immediate management of the problem after birth. So how is gastroschisis treated? Treatment for gastroschisis is surgery to repair the defect. According to Medline Plus, a surgeon will put the bowel back into the abdomen and close the defect. If the abdominal cavity is too small, a mesh sac will be stitched around the borders of the defect and pulled up. Over time, the displaced intestines will fall back into the abdominal cavity and the defect can then be closed. Other treatments for gastroschisis, which I found using a combination of all my sources and my interviews, are nutrients via IV and TPN, or total parenteral nutrition, antibiotics to prevent infection, and carefully controlling baby's temperature, as the exposed intestine will allow a lot of body heat to escape. So what are the other complications of gastroschisis? A child has a very good chance of recovery if the abdominal cavity is big enough. However, the abdominal cavity is very small. It could result in complications requiring additional surgery. For example, the misplaced intestines may make it difficult for the baby to expand the lungs, leading to breathing problems. Other complications generally include digestive issues, which is usually the result of the intestines being exposed to the amniotic fluid. And bowel death is another possible complication. In some situations, the walls of the abdomen try to close after the intestine has been displaced, which may shut off blood supply to the intestine, leading to death of the bowel. Often this complication requires extensive surgery to replace the bowel and provide nutrients through an intravenous infusion of TPN, which is basically being tube fed through an IV. I thought the best way to show other possible complications would be to speak with someone who had real experience with the defect, so I spoke to the adoptive mother of a child with this condition. The mother asked not to be named in my speech, so we'll call her Julie, and she did share some information with me. Her daughter, who we'll call Natalie, was born with gastroschisis, and the abdominal wall had closed around her intestine, choking off their blood supply. Upon Natalie's birth, the intestines were black and dead. Only 4 inches of viable bowel could be saved, and had to be surgically attached to her transverse colon. The loss of bowel makes it impossible for her to absorb the nutrients needed to sustain life. So she requires an IV infusion of TPN that runs through a large blood vessel in her chest 20 hours a day. This is hard on her veins and makes her prone to bacteria that can cause blood infections. Numerous line placements for the IV have caused scarring and taxed the liver, like excessive alcohol and a toxic lifestyle would. When Julie adopted Natalie, the baby was 18 months old and barely weighed 12 pounds because of her inability to absorb nutrients. Natalie is now just over 4 years old and will be returning to the hospital for a 6-month stay in order to receive organ transplants and hopefully be able to have her own working digestive system and finally be free of IVs and TPNs. So there are almost 4 million babies born in the United States each year. Approximately 122,000 of those babies are born with some type of birth defect, and 1,500 of them are born with gastroschisis, which is, as I've said, a rare but very serious defect, and I've now shared some details of this defect with you. I've explained what gastroschisis is, how it is diagnosed, how it is treated, and other complications that may occur from gastroschisis, as well as the story of a mother battling to save her little girl from being destroyed by this defect. While birth defect can be an extremely frightening word to hear during pregnancy, at least now we have the optimism that comes with knowing that even a severe defect like gastroschisis can be repaired.